want to welcome our viewers to the Johnson City Government Information Channel on Charter Cable Channel 192 and Comcast Cable Channel 17 to this live telecast of the April 11, 2017 Johnson City Regional Planning Commission meeting. This meeting will be rebroadcast on Friday, April 14th at 12 o'clock noon. Let's call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Lowe?
Here.
Commissioner Harvey?
Here.
Commissioner Cooper?
Here.
Commissioner Benedict?
Here.
Commissioner Pavlich?
Here.
Commissioner Sanders? Here. Chairman Sines?
Here. And we will have our invocation by Commissioner Ruddy, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, let us pray. Our Father, be with us in these moments as we gather to do the business of the day. May we remember to listen well and to speak clearly. May we be present to one another here in this time. Let us always remember to help those that need guidance and help keep the fabric of our city's planning quest orderly and strong. Please face the flag and for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item is approval of the agenda. You have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. First, item on new business tonight will be the Washington County rezoning request for a property on West Walnut Street. Welcome back, Ms. Charles.
This property is located at the corner of West Walnut and McKinley Road. The corner is an old general store, the Midway Market, and behind it there is a single-family residence, all on the same property. It's approximately 1.1 acres. The property is currently split zoned R1 and B2, and the petitioner is requesting to rezone to R2, which is a medium-density residential district. The petitioner wishes to convert the existing store building into a duplex and also keep that third unit that is the single-family unit behind the building as well. So there'd be a total of 3 units on the property. Staff is recommending approval of the request.
Thank you, Ms. Charles. Do you have any questions for staff in regards to this rezoning request?
How many total units would R2 allow?
Since sewer is not available to the property, up to 5 units could be placed on the property.
With septic tanks?
With septic, yes, sir, if approved.
If sewer were available?
I don't have those numbers in front of me. You could probably get a couple of extra units on there with sewer.
Is the exit primarily out of this property just at the old gas station, or is it also a side road exit?
There is an entrance onto McKinley as well as West Walnut. The primary entrance that you see if you travel down West Walnut, the main old entrance, I guess if you want to look at it that way, is from West Walnut, but you can also access the property from McKinley.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about future development, whether that'll make much difference in terms of that curve and sight distance. I know that area's got its sight distance problems, so, okay.
Can you fill us in what the zoning is on across the street from it there?
Across the street, there is a piece of city zoning. The zoning does not show up on this map, but if you will look, this piece of property right here is located in the city limits, and that property is zoned R4, which does allow 14 units an acre. The rest of the surrounding zoning, other than the B2 that's on the front portion of this property, is predominantly R1.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have any further questions for staff?
Thank you.
Thank you. This time we'll go ahead and open up the public comment portion of the hearing for this rezoning request. Is there anybody here wishing to speak for or against this rezoning request? Yes, please, go ahead and come to the podium and just give us your name and address, please.
I didn't play plan to do this. My name is Paula Pickle. I live at 3530 West Walnut Street. You take your life in your hands just crossing the street already to get your mail. And I'm just wondering if there's any consideration for the traffic, especially coming from the Jonesboro side in this direction, if there's going to be any changes to that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a question that we could address in further deliberation later. Thank you for asking. Are there any further people who'd like to speak for or against? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move on to deliberation on council. Angie, is there anything you can say that to answer the question that was raised about traffic studies or any traffic impacts with regards to this?
Not immediately, other than West Walnut does carry approximately 5,000 vehicle trips per day in this area. Typically, with a residential use, you do see less traffic than you do with a commercial use. So you would be expected to see less per day traffic with a duplex than you would a commercial use in that front B2 portion of zoning. But there are no current plans that I'm aware of from the county's perspective in this area.
Angie, if there's future site plan development under the R2, would he have to come back for a concept plan at that time?
The county requirements are slightly different from the city's requirements. If he does want to add extra units, the site plan would go to the county's planning commission if it was rezoned. It would not come back before this board.
Right,
No, sir.
but does the county planning commission require a concept plan?
On the site plan, it would be the location of the buildings, and they would want to know that TDEC is certified for septic availability.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to see an exit only off of McKinley. That's the reason I'm driving at that.
Okay.
All right, that's all.
Any further questions for staff again, or deliberation?
Is the entrance to the residential area, is it only off of McKinley for the existing residential area?
There's let's see, there we go.
Yeah.
There's a little drive right here that comes around behind, so you can access that way. You can also, this whole front area on the site is all paved right now, so you can pull onto the property anywhere from West Walnut. Up along the side of McKinley is also paved as well.
Are there any environmental concerns with there being an existing gas station at all? Like once that property changes?
Can I answer that question? I'm sorry.
Are there presently two separate septic tank units, one for the existing residential home and then one for the current market?
I'm not sure how the existing septic is designed, other than the fact that TDEC has approved of it. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Okay, any further deliberation or questions? Looking for a motion regarding the rezoning request.
I move it be approved.
Have a motion for approval. We have a second.
Second.
A second from Mr. Cooper. Will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Lowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Brody,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bidley,
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandos,
Yes.
and Chairman Zines.
Yes, thank you.
Before
We
we...
need to go back to the minutes.
Yes.
Everybody's had a chance to review the minutes. We need somebody to be a motion for approval or any corrections.
So moved.
A motion for approval, Mr. Cooper.
Second.
Second, Mr. Burns. Let's call roll. Or, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Good, we're gonna roll for that. Very nice. Okay, let's move on to consider the rezoning property located on Sinking Creek Road.
Yes, sir. This is rezoning request number 1020. Petitioner is Samuel Higgins. The property is currently zoned R2, and they were requesting to go to A1, which is agricultural. The property is 3 acres in size. Currently is vacant, and the petitioner is proposing to construct an outbuilding on the property in order to store his mowing equipment, lawn equipment, and has hopes to one day also create a nursery on the property to use to help supplement his business. The Johnson City Land Use Plan designates the area suitable for residential use. Agricultural does allow for residential uses within it. Existing water and sewer services are available and adequate for the proposed use. The petitioner held their required neighborhood meeting on April 10th. Staff received one call with regard to the request. That was neither in opposition or in favor of the request. They were just trying to get some more information. A concept plan is required. As you can see here, the petitioner is showing a 38 by 45 foot building near the rear of the property, set back 50 feet from the rear property line and 25 feet from the side property line. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning to A1 based on the fact the land use plan does call for residential uses to be allowed in this area. That water and sewer and existing utilities can service the property adequately, and the proposed A1 land use would be less intense than surrounding multifamily developments for this property.
Mr. Young, questions for staff?
Yeah, Matt, is that the only exit, the one that I see toward the north of the white line? I mean, it seems like that's a parallel exit to the existing road. He's going to make a left turn out of that. It's kind of dangerous.
As you can see here, there's that little stub on the side, and it is my understanding that is the only entrance and exit currently onto the property.
It's not a straight out exit though, is it? I mean, you have to turn.
You have to turn around, yes.
You have to turn pretty severely.
Yes.
This is a concept plan, so that exit comes into play whether it works or not.
Now, that is an existing drive. The
Yeah,
property
but
did have it beforehand, so I mean, it would be...
Could still be bad.
Oh, I agree.
Good. Existing bad situation. Alan, maybe we can let Alan Cantrell talk a little bit about the site distance in that curve.
Great.
At one time, probably 25 years ago, when someone was living in that house, they had a second driveway that came this way to the street and then this way, and depending on which way they were going, they had advantages. One had advantages over the other. I'm not suggesting they go out and build a driveway there, but that's one way in the past that people lived there got around the issue of not being able to see well for turning left out of here.
Yeah.
Because they could come here and turn left.
Yeah.
There were two previous proposals separated by about 5 or 6 years that came before boards, and Public Works Department staff, which included me, spoke out about the site distance at this location. We did measurements and surveys. Pretty much in the middle of the curve would be where the optimum place is to have a driveway. But it would require filling and elevating the driveway, which didn't work well with the layouts of those previous developments. One was a single-family development, and they were going to lose part of a lot if they did this. The other was a apartment-type complex going in there, and that it cramped the way they wanted to situate the building. So both of those went away because they didn't desire to put the driveway in the optimal place. The current driveway is not in the optimal place, and we haven't objected to this rezoning from the Public Works standpoint because it's downzoning and putting a lower traffic load on the street. And as long as it's not intensifying or adding traffic to it, we weren't going to speak out that the driveway had to be relocated.
In your opinion, can you make a better straight-in driveway connection there rather than a parallel connection?
For a lower volume type development, I think the original use, the way the people that used to rent the home having choices, one to go one way or the other, that would probably work well with what they're planning to do on this property. But if it gets more intense, I think they need to actually construct a new driveway and elevate it some distance before you reach the street so that the car is more level.
Right.
You can get better elevation to see. But for what I hear, that could be used here. Probably the solution would be to just reopen or reutilize that second driveway.
Second one, it's still viable to open it?
I think it just grew over at lack of use,
Okay.
and they would probably discover there's some gravel out there under the weeds.
Yeah, I just have some concern about that connection.
I'm unclear about where that, and I'm looking at this drawing, where that white connects to the,
I think it's right here.
so it connects to that little stub.
That little wood
that's
stuff.
Yeah, you come in
right there.
here,
Okay,
and
so
then you
it-
curve down into the site.
Gotcha, okay.
And I think on your map, that white line is drawn over the top of the, where you extend it down in the property with private drive. This almost implies a little stub of public driveway, and then the private starts.
My current understanding is it is zoned R2 like it is. Somebody could, with the current zoning, go ahead and build a multifamily unit or higher density, medium density residential units there. But they would have to be able to get construction
Yeah, I
permits,
wasn't at
which
that
would be
meeting,
difficult to
yeah.
do with the limited site distance that we have currently.
Yeah, if you do more than one house on that property, it's when we're gonna start asking you to do something better with the driveway. Or if you do more than this proposed barn on this property, we'll be asking for more information about your driveway location before we issue a construction permit.
So if more, if a different structure is put on there, we still have a chance to come back and talk about the safety of the driveway because of the construction permits
Yes,
required.
that's correct, Trey. It'd be at the staff level, they wouldn't be coming back unless they're going to rezone again or propose subdivision where it would require coming back to this board. It would be at staff level only.
Very good. And could staff require a change of the site plan or a conditional zoning approval tonight, conditional upon a change of the site plan that would relocate the driveway? Is that something?
Ask that again.
This board? It might be a better question for Angie, actually. But I was curious if we could, if this body, if it would be in the purview of this body to go ahead and consider approval contingent upon changing a driveway location or something like that. Would that be within the scope of this board?
It might be, but you're speculating as to what might be done and narrowing them down to something they may never do.
Very good.
So, be tough.
Okay. But that's within the, of approving site plans, that's why we have site plans, correct? Sorry.
We have concept plans,
Right.
and the concept
Yeah.
plan can determine the ingress, egress location, and the building traffic flow into that specific site, anywhere the detention is. And if the scope changes significantly, then it would have to come back.
Okay. Thank you.
So technically, this is a concept plan.
That's the concept plan, right?
Which doesn't accomplish what Alan said is the best solution.
That is correct. And again, he says it's a down zone and appropriate for the uses there, just to be clear. Do we have any further questions for staff at this moment?
I have one question. Yeah, I do too. Is yours a question as long as that?
Well, yeah, it is. It's like,
So,
what can you do in A1?
yeah, what are all the uses that could actually happen in A1?
A1 does allow for residential uses. You want to be allowed one residential property per, house per property there, so they don't have one house on it. You're also allowed to have any kind of use associated with livestock, so you could keep horses on it, chickens, you could have hogs. You could also do a nursery, tree farm, things of that like that.
In the county, you can have certain kinds of businesses on there. You can have little country stores.
Right, you can have a roadside stand actually on A1 if they wanted to have, you know, if you did have some sort of vegetables, you were going there, you could have a roadside stand right there and sell.
So you can have a commercial use attached to it?
You could, yes.
Well, that's, I mean,
But it,
fruit stand's one thing, you couldn't put a convenience store on there.
no, it would have to, you'd have to sell whatever is produced on site there. You wouldn't be able to bring in outside goods.
I think the county's smaller than that, they're A1.
It is, they can do a lot in the A1.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we're going to open up public comment. Do you have anybody here wishing to speak for or against this rezoning request? Thank you, sir. So just give us your name and address.
Sam Higgins, I'm the owner of the property.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to let y'all know that the second entrance you're talking about to cut left down Singing Creek is still there and still operational.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to let us know about it?
We're not putting horses or no livestock on the place, it's just trying to get a place to store some equipment.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
understanding. What we're doing, of course, is making what all could potentially go there, not necessarily what you're going to do with it,
Right.
but the zoning implies what can happen if you don't
If you
have
sell
it anymore.
I have one other question for staff.
Okay, let me see if there's any more public comment. Anybody here else wishing to speak for or against? No, we'll go ahead and close the public portion. Yes, sir, Mr. Young, go ahead.
Was the building size 38 by 45? Is that right?
Yes.
Is that size, do you need any type of, is that allowable under the A1, something?
Under
that
A1
size?
would be, yes.
Maximum size.
So you don't need any kind of exception?
No, that only applies to buildings, accessory buildings outside of the A1 district. So if you're in a residential district, the maximum size of an accessory building you could have would be 850 square feet. Unless you've got a special exception from the BZA, at which time it can be 1/3 the size of the primary structure.
So under A1 for this particular accessory building,
It's for a primary building at this point in A1. A barn can be the only structure on A1 property, so it would be.
running
primary.
water, septic, power,
You would not turn it, being that it's barn, you would not turn it into a residential space.
upper, above, or nothing like that?
Right, you would be allowed to turn, you could have a residence on the property.
But not in the barn?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions for staff at this point? No, I think to frame the debate, one interesting thought is that this is A1 in the middle of a sea of R2, which brings up the question of spot zoning, which is something that we should address. Yes, a rezoning body can consider something like that and deviate from that from time to time if they have an excellent reason why to do it. It doesn't go too far afield from what the intent of the land use plan is. Staff did recommend approval because they thought it was consistent with the residential portion of it. However, this does have commercial implications. The land can still be used as R2, but it requires significant changes to the existing roadway as far as development, and that's hindered development in the past of this particular property. So that's the question that we're asked to deliberate on, and we'll open this up to deliberation on the board.
That's my biggest concern, is that it's a spot zone, and it is inconsistent with what basically at least the zoning around it.
I like the concept. I think it fits that piece of property. The challenge I have with it is what you can do within A1 if you said, Mr. Higgins, no longer want to maintain that property. Not that I don't think it's a great concept. That's kind of my concerns at this particular point.
Well, it sounds like from a traffic standpoint, we don't want somebody to come in there and develop a multifamily development.
I agree.
Right, so the other uses would be a single-family development or something like this. And this fellow's here asking to have it rezoned so he could do this. I understand the spot zoning issue, but feel like that the staff is recommending it because of the traffic, and so it's a valid use of the property.
Chairman's 2 cents would be that this is a spot zone, there's no doubt about it, but that's why we're here as a body, and it's not just checked off in the regulations and just spit it out, because this is a pretty difficult to use piece of property. And even from a safety standpoint, just putting something in there that'll be lower volume used might actually be more beneficial. So I wouldn't have a problem with the spot zone in this particular case, but I think as a body, we have to be very careful not to spot zone. That's not what we're here to do. The this would be an exception.
We need to remind ourselves that A1 allows for a lot of other uses.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Higgins has good plans for the property, which it sounds like we totally agree with. We don't have a bit of problem with, but if property were to change hands, or Mr. Higgins' objectives changed, then we could have a hog farm or whatever else A1 allows.
Understood.
It's a conundrum.
Further discussion or a motion?
The only discussion I'd have is I think unwanted multifamily development is more likely than an unwanted hog farm. That's just a gut feeling.
Well, as I understand, the issue on the property, I mean, we would be fine with multifamily on that property. It's just take a significant amount of money to make it work, to get the drives up so that you've got good sight lines down both sides of the curb. So it's not that we wouldn't be amenable to that. Is that correct?
That's right. Apparently, the
It
history of it
would
is
just
we
be
have not-
expensive to accomplish that.
It's killed a couple of projects on the
Right.
site already, just for that same reason. It didn't seem to make sense to the people willing to invest in it. So it may not come about if it's that sort of issue.
Call the question.
No, we gotta have a motion. Chairman's not making a motion.
Continuing deliberation, is there any concern over the projected or proposed use that this is going to be for storage of equipment, meaning the equipment wouldn't be used presumably there at that property? So if there's issues with the sight lines or the ingress egress onto the main road, we're looking at a proposition of slow-moving vehicles as opposed to regular motor vehicles. Would that be an area of concern that we might be actually creating more of a danger to that roadway?
Well, it's an excellent point.
Very good point.
Mr. Higgins, do you mind answering a question or two? Sure. You want to come up to that microphone?
I guess the question would primarily be for your intended use of what you've stated, do you intend to keep the equipment there on the property, or is that something where you're just going to be storing them and then utilizing them in other places?
You're talking about zero-turn mowers, small mowers, that kind of thing. Nothing huge, you know what I'm saying? There won't be tractor trailers in and out of there. Largest truck that we have is a 3500 flatbed, which is on any city road.
I want to make it clear that our zoning decision will not be based on conditional upon uses or
Sure.
intentions. That's not something that we're really here to deliberate on.
Right, I understand.
And we can't.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for answering the questions. But really, we have to kind of stick with what we can do with A1 and what potentially can happen there. So, it's just to let you know, thanks for being willing to answer them.
Sure. That it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm not sure what he might predict his number of trips in and out, but if he has an answer for that, that would be a good answer for you to hear. A single-family home, on average, has about 10 trips a day. Now, if it's just a couple living there, it'd be a lot less, but with a family and children start to drive, it'll get up into the 10 and a little more, but average is about 10 trips a day. We're comfortable with a single-family home on that property, like it was before, with around 10 to 12 trips a day. And if he's going in and out with his equipment, trailer, and truck, if it's no more than that, I don't see any issues with the traffic.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Do the tax base of the property.
Any further questions for staff or concerns?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Got a motion on the floor.
By Commissioner Lip. So, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second from Commissioner Sanders. Okay.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Thanks.
Motion to approve the zoning request and a second. If you will please call the roll.
Commissioner Lowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey?
No.
Commissioner Cooper?
No.
Commissioner Benedict?
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlich?
No.
Commissioner Sandos?
Yes.
And Chairman Sines.
Got it, huh?
sorry.
Take
It's
your
a
time,
difficult-
do it.
difficult
I mean,
one.
We need to be fair to everybody.
No.
I think it's just spot zone. I'd be against spot zone. I don't care what it is.
going to do, it's fine.
But if he sells it tomorrow.
Can you go ahead and give us the tally, please?
Yes, it's 3, 4, 3 yes, and 2 commissioners no, chairman no.
No.
That's not
No, that's
possible.
not correct.
We got 7 here.
I'm sorry, that's my fault, I'm sorry.
It should be 3 and 4.
It is 3 and 4, I'm sorry. It's 3, 4, 4 against.
I wish to call a point of order. Does any further discussion? No? Okay.
Just that it's a toughie.
It is.
We apologize. It's just, it's an A1 and what you're going to use it for.
We're going to do this to it next. If we can't do that, then we've got, my developers are ready to go.
But that's what's around it, so, I mean, that,
But the cost on that, that's why you've had 3 projects pulled out on you guys for this reason here. I mean, I'm willing to do something with the property and make it, a nice place instead of a hole behind the guardrail.
it's not an easy decision.
Thank you very much. This is something we'd be glad to discuss with you, but probably not during the meeting right now. It's an excellent question, and we get where you're coming from. It was a difficult decision.
On the other hand, you must allow the guy to be able to do something with it.
We can't predict.
So I'd go with our next
He could
item on
sell
the
it
agenda,
tomorrow.
please.
Yes. The final item on the agenda tonight is Cedar Rock Village Phase 4 final plat approval.
I'm not so sure about it either, so.
This is a 32-lot, 18.2 acre subdivision located along Hammett Road. The property is currently zoned RB2, and the developer is Windsor Pottery Company. Cedar Rock Village was originally approved in 2006. This phase received preliminary plat approval in December of 2015, and the petitioner is now requesting final approval. Utilities have been installed, and the street is complete. The remaining work includes sidewalks, ditch repair, detention basin conversion, and street and traffic signs. The engineering division has provided a bond estimate of $323,000 to complete the remaining work. Staff recommends approval of final plat approval of Cedar Rock Village Phase 4 conditioned upon receiving the bond.
Sorry.
A cash bond or letter of credit.
Didn't want to offer anyway to make it right.
Okay. Any further questions? Staff, regarding this, sorry, we're still that.
Yeah, I've got a question. Is there a deadline for making the final? Side?
This developer has been, the main expense you're looking at here is bonding of sidewalks. This developer has been, as they build each house, they build the sidewalk in front of it. And so as they build each sidewalk, it will reduce the bond amount down further and further. As far as, is there a time that all this is required? That I'm not positive on. Usually holding $324,000 is incentive to get people to move. Right. And maybe Bernard here can help us out with that.
The bond, the subdivision regulations of the city require that the bond be renewed every year. So when you approve it today, April 11, 2018, if the improvements have not been made, the property owner has to apply for renewal of that bond, back before the planning commission and have it renewed.
But as the lots are sold and some of this infrastructure is put in place, then the bond amount gets reduced.
The bond amount yes, it does. However, they will have to submit an as-built by which you determine whether, how much of that bond really reduces. And it's not something that developers just do every now and then for every single house, because it costs money to get engineers to do that. Usually they will, let's say, be 4 or 5 houses, and then they apply and ask that the bond be reduced. It's not something they do for every single house because of the cost.
It's not a big bond.
Any
further questions for staff? Any public comment for this, Angie? I don't think there's a public comment requirement. Okay. Have anybody wishing to speak for or against? Seeing none, close the public portion. And looking for motions or discussion.
This is a typical bond-type pattern for subdivisions. I think engineering has determined the cost on it in terms of completion, so I move we go ahead and approve it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please call roll.
Commissioner Lowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Rowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Bivens?
Yes.
Commissioner Pavlik?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanders? Yes. And Chairman Bryant?
Yes. Motion passes. Just from the chair, I'd like to, since I cast the deciding vote on our Sinking Creek rezoning, I'd like to explain that just for purposes of anyone listening. But with a rezoning there, having it turn into A1, clearly we all wanted it to function as almost like a residential and an agricultural area. We weren't comfortable for true agricultural purposes to the full extent of its use. That since we wanted it to function like residential, it would make sense to apply the general residential restrictions for outbuilding sizes. And if you built a single-family residence there like he was going to later, then right there he'll have a single-family residence with a very large outbuilding that generally is out of character with how the land is generally used there. And that would be out of character with that, how the restrictions on the land use plan from that standpoint. So that was the logic and the thinking of why are we doing this different. Yes, it is considered an R2 development. Most people develop their R2. Is it going to cost more? Yes, but at some point it may make more sense that that is what it was potentially designed to and not a donut hole. So that's why I made that decision.
It's a question of consistency, too, in terms of our land use, that we don't have spot zoning.
We really need to take the land use plan very seriously here. It's tough decisions, but that's why we're here. Any further discussions or points of interest? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
That was a toughie.